Welcome to this Yin 30, so quick, short class. So we'll do quite a nice little sequence. So probably if you are a little bit tight in the hips, block, cushion, we're probably going to be using the block anyway. If you don't have one, few cushions or books. I don't know how the books really work, but worth investing into a block. Or maybe if you have a foam roller, that would work as well. And we'll start straight away in a shoelace with the right leg on top. So you want to try to have, I'll try to turn a little bit this way, the right knee on top of the left. So I like to just sort of wiggle a little bit my hips just so that you come into place, and you want to have your feet out to the side. So take a little wiggle so that you come into place, and you can keep your hands on your knees, knee or knees. Just one knee, top knee. Or if you want to go a little bit further, you can bring your left arm up and place your hand between your shoulder blades. So we'll be opening through the shoulders, so working into pretty much the whole body here. So see if you can get hold of your elbow and try to bring your arm behind you. So I'm still working very much on opening my shoulders, obviously. A few injuries in shoulders are not really helping, so you want to watch for that. If you have injuries, just do what you can. Doesn't need to be too strong, but you want to make sure that you keep breathing. So you try to breathe as deeply as possible into the hips, but also into the chest, so trying to keep your spine nice and straight. And if you can go further, maybe you can place your right hand behind and get hold of your fingers for the full Gomukhasana, cow face as they call it, pose. And if you can go a little bit further, if you have more flexibility, you can start to lean forward, but you want to make sure that you keep your spine nice and straight. So if you start rounding into your back to start coming forward, it's probably not so good. So again, you want to try to keep your spine nice and upright as you lean forward. So I'll just show you from this perspective. So you want to make sure that you're not reaching forward so much that your hips are coming up, and you try to reach your left elbow a little bit further forward, resting your chest on your thigh. We're going to be there for a few more breaths. Again, if this is too much, you can just stay nice and upright. So you might start to feel little tingling, pin and needles maybe into the shoulders. So just probably, if you're a little bit tight, blood is not circulating, try to stay with the sensations for a few more breaths. Unless this is really too painful, then you can start to release. Otherwise, a few more deep, strong breaths in through the nose to lengthen into the spine all the way down to your hips, up to your collarbones, and then softening into the pose. So we've got maybe one more minute here. very slowly you can start to come up. Release your arms. Oh, this is a good feeling when you release. And you can just swing your right leg around to the back, and we'll move straight away into a swan. So you can bring your hands forward, coming over onto your left knee. So you want to make sure that your knee is out to the side of the mat, and you can start to walk your right leg back. So one little thing that you can do is use obviously a block or cushion if you're really tight and your hip can't reach the floor. We're always going to have here a tendency for the right hip to lift, so leaning onto the bent leg, and you can adjust. So if you're not too flexible, you can bring your foot in as close as possible to your groin. That will make it easier, and you try to keep your hips nice and squared. Point your right toes, and you can start just with a few breaths here with your hands by your side, standing nice and upright, to try to really feel into the alignment of the hips. So the hips want to be squared to the short edge of the mat and parallel to the floor as much as possible. So you might even push your right hip down. Again, you can adjust your leg according to any knee injury or tightness in the hips. And when you feel ready, you can start to come down first onto your elbows, and you can use a block, as I often recommend. It's a very good idea to just put a little bit of pressure on your forehead. So using a block at different settings. Just taking a moment here to find your edge. And of course, as usual in our yoga practice, if you find that you need to go to your next edge, then you can adjust with a block to the middle setting, maybe the lower setting. Probably want to do that using the breath. So every time you exhale and soften into the pose, you might start to go a little bit further, maybe all the way down to reach your forehead, your third eye, to the earth. Extending your arms forward, relaxing completely, and see if you can really let that left hip relax a bit further, so either into your cushion or to the floor. And we'll take a few deep breaths in this beautiful pose, which really helps to open the hips. Great pose to also relax, go deeper internally. And just relax there, feeling into the sensations around the hip. Making sure that your knee is nice and comfortable, so anytime you feel this is too much for the knee, again, you can adjust your leg or even release. You want to make sure you don't have any pain in the knee. The hip should be just about probably fine, but the knees, there's a little bit of a cranking here, twisting into the knee. So if you have really sensitive knees, that might be a problem, in which case you might just want to thread the needle on your back, which would be a safer version of pretty much the same pose or same stretch, let's say. Very gently you can inhale coming up, and we'll come back onto that left hip just to swing the leg, right leg around, and we'll take a double pigeon. So you want to make sure that your left shin is parallel to the short edge of the mat, placing your right foot on top of your left knee, and you want to make sure you flex your toes, foot, to protect your right knee, stacking your shins parallel to each other. Again, you might be using a block. If you feel this is a little bit much, you might be using maybe a blanket, a cushion to slightly elevate your hips, or also if you feel this is way too heavy on the right hip, right knee being real far from your left foot, maybe cushion, folded, whatever works for you. And if you can go further, just about in the same way that we did before, you can find a block starting on your elbows. Again, you want to make sure that your hips are not lifting off the floor. Working to your edges. So you're probably going to find it a little bit harder to go all the way down to the floor. I mean, some people can. I cannot. So you just have to honor where you're at in your practice with your body. What's important here is to really try to keep the spine nice and straight without forcing. Again, we're here for a few minutes, so you will feel it into your hips for sure. That's a pretty deep hip opener. But you really want to make sure that you don't push yourself trying too hard to get into the pose. If you actually back off a little bit and get a good form, so spine nice and straight so that you can breathe deeply, you'll probably benefit more from practicing in this way in the long term. Because if you try a little bit too hard, often people have the idea that to be good at it, you need to have the ability to reach the forehead to the floor, and then they will force and they will really curl as much as they can, and in forcing, you're just getting too much compression, too much force. You're not allowing the body to be nice and soft, and therefore you can't breathe deeply. This is when you can actually really let go of this idea, forcing this competition that we've often been kind of taught in our societies to be the best and to always push. So this is not exactly what we practice in yoga. We actually rather try to let go of all these mental constructs, cultural and social conditioning that put us in a box and try to make us fit into category such and such, beginner, advanced, whatever it might be. Just accept where you're at and just feel into it. And by letting go and relaxing, you will achieve a lot more. Away from any judgment. Otherwise, you're just probably gonna self-inflict unnecessary pain, judgment. And slowly coming up, and you can just unwind your legs. Most probably that's going to be feeling really good. I might give a little shake, maybe feet out in. Another good one is to take a few windshield wipers. Might feel good for the hips. See if you can feel the stretch onto the top of the right hip. And then you can take the left side. See if you can stretch from that top shoulder across the body here. Couple of times before we move into the other side. So coming back to center, you can swing your right leg under, left knee on top, so you might maybe even cop slightly forward to adjust your Gomukhasana legs. So what I like to do sometimes is to help pushing a little bit, again, not too much, you don't want to really force it, but try to get your knees on top of each other. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And then getting into the shoulder. So you can start to get hold of your elbow to help pulling. Spine is nice and straight. You want to really feel the stretch into the right side ribs. Armpits. Maybe you can go further. And again, spine is nice and straight, neck is long. See if you can even push the back of the head into your arm, just so that maybe you feel a little bit more stretch on the armpit. And at the same time, see if you can push with the back of your left hand into the back of your heart. So this is all a bit kind of the same sort of energy, counter energy as you push with the back of your head, straightens the spine, helps to push the back of the hand into the back of the heart, and the whole spine straightens. And you keep that action, spine nice and straight, hips are relaxed, and every breath out, you can start to lean forward. So that's a pretty good one for the shoulders. Just want to stay with the sensations in the shoulders, trying to soften into them every exhale. So this helps to open up a little bit more into the top of the lungs to help with the breath. Sit with it for a few more breaths. very slowly inhaling, coming up. Oh, so good to release the shoulders. And we'll move straight away into our pigeon, leaning onto your right hip. So just taking a moment here to set up, leaning forward. Again, make sure you adjust with your knee outside edge of the mat. And I always like to reach back with my left foot so my hips go back and down. So really pay attention to your hip alignment. Again, maybe you can help with your hands. Set your hips down. And go nice and easy every exhale to find your edge. So we've got a few breaths here. So you can go nice and easy. Every breath out. Maybe going deeper. Maybe it's every second breath, whatever it might be. You don't need to go all the way down. Again, resist the temptation to push too hard, trying to reach for a goal. In yoga, a little bit different from this world of duality. We rather try to enjoy the journey instead of trying to reach for the destination, the goal. That's not exactly what's important. We all have different histories of genetics. Maybe not the same amount of time and effort that we can put into the practice, injuries, whatever it might be. So if you just need to be on your elbows, upright, that's where you're at. Just try to find, again, a pose of comfort. So you use the props to make yourself comfortable so that you can breathe deeply and enjoy the journey. Just relaxing into it. Again, what's really important is to feel the breath. Invite oxygen, prana, to nourish the body, nourish the parts of the body that you feel you are activating, stretching. And just feel that. Again, this is the journey of discovery of your body. And sometimes the discovery is a little bit lengthy. You need to listen, pay attention, and it takes time. Instead of always rushing as we do in normal times. There's a real beauty in slowing down. You can discover parts of yourself that you didn't notice, didn't know. Just enjoying the last couple of breaths. And gently coming up on an inhale. And again, lean onto your right hip, swing your left leg to the front. So just adjust shins parallel to the front edge of the mat. So take a moment here to let that left hip relax. Again, don't forget to flex your feet to protect the knees. That's still pretty strong maybe for the knees. Maybe wiggle your hips. Get comfy. Again, make sure that your hips are in contact with the floor. And just find your edge, wherever that is. Whatever props you might need. And just relax. Again, you want to try to keep the spine nice and straight. So really working with the breath, lengthening every inhale and every exhale. See if you can soften into your abdomen, hips. So that's a deep work into the hips. And the more you use deep breath all the way down to your hips, the more it helps with your hips, and the more you open your hips, the more it helps with the breath. It's kind of like one helps the other and vice versa. And we'll just take another few quiet minutes in this pose before you can move into shavāsana. If you want, it's always good practice to release from the pose and end with probably, I'd say, at least 2 to 3 minutes for that length of practice of relaxation, just to really feel into the body. Or if you just want a quick, short practice, you can just slowly make your way up, shaking those hips, shaking those legs, and get on with your evening, nice and relaxed. Or even stay for longer. Shavāsana, maybe even if you feel the need to relax and really let go of stress, tension, maybe a little nidra. That's something that I always recommend. A very good combination. I have quite a few yoga nidras on my YouTube channel. If you want to use them, feel free to go and play them again and again. It's all free, it's all for you. Just as a good gesture for a good relaxation. We're taking one last deep breath. Softening that little bit further on that last exhale. And very slowly we can start to inhale. You might keep your eyes closed if you want, just so that you start releasing nice and easy, walking your hands back. And put your prop away, bringing your hands behind your back, leaning back to release. One leg at a time, and just lean on your back for shavāsana. As usual, if you want to stay for a little bit longer in shavāsana, use a blanket to get warm and cozy, especially if you want to do a beautiful nidra practice, which I'll put up somewhere. You can get a link. Otherwise, if you just want to relax for a few minutes or just as long as you want. You can just switch everything off, lie on your back. Ideally, we get into shavāsana with minimal amount of movement so that you don't move the energy too much and you just feel the release. So after this pose, this practice, especially in the hips, just let those hips, legs, lower back relax completely. Again, making yourself very comfy, warm, pillows, whatever. If you're going for a 20-minute, 30-minute, I'll just probably put up a short yoga nidra, just a cool practice to really activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We've really prepared the body, working on the energies, nice and slow. So really prepared to get that rest and digest to really kick in. So yoga nidra is when you can really have that kick in. The body, the mind is relaxed, the breath is soft. This will allow you to go into a deep internal journey. So just relax there, a few breaths for your nidra, or just an easy few minutes shavāsana. So I leave it to you now, and I will see you on the next video. Very good to have you with me for this little yin, and keep practicing. If you liked it, click the button subscribe, share it with your friends, like it, give it away, practice again, come back to it. Every time you can go a bit deeper. Until next time, stay well. See you.